Hello, everyone. I'm Ellie from Nourishment Redacted, and I hope you guys are all super cozy tonight because it's pajama night. Yay! It was suggested by our guests. How fun. Take it away, Cristie.
So I am Cristie from no wheat around here, Meeting Wellness. And I'm so happy to be meeting with you all this evening.
And I'm Adrian from Adrian K. Gledhill. Tonight, if you could get your questions ready, you put question, or QQQ in front, and we'll be sure to get it to our guest.
And now it's time for this week's Roar of the Week. So this week's Roar of the Week is from a regular viewer. You guys probably recognize Aid. I love Aid, always on, making awesome comments. I hope Aid's watching right now, not sure. But carnivore is proper human behavior. The closer to paleo man or his good wife that we get, the healthier we become. And then you have some Latin, which I looked up, but now I can't remember. I did look it up and I lost it, what it means. But something about the health of the people being very important. Something like that. You guys can go look it up if you want to know. So if you want to be next week's Roar of the Week, make a comment after the show down below in any one of our channels, and we'll be happy to hunt through those and choose a roar for next week's Roar of the Week.
All right. Well, thanks so much for that. Why wait any longer? Let's invite our guest onto the show. Everyone get ready.
Hi.
Hello, Serena. Welcome to Lioness Lifestyle. I hope you're going to have a good time with us tonight. Could you share about yourself, your healing journey, and how you found the carnivore diet?
Sure. So my story is basically that I bought my first diet pills when I was 12. That's it. Thanks for coming. No, I mean, obviously that's a terrible way to, start like teenage years. My sister had been anorexic and bulimic as far back as I could remember. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was a drug addict. So I was just kind of all mixed up, in there, being surrounded by all of those addictions and all of those sicknesses. So it was just a really hard place to be. And I remember just being worried all the time about my weight. I eventually became bulimic, and I was bulimic for years. It was like I never could be anorexic, but I was jealous of anorexics, which I know is just a crazy thing to say. But honestly, I would look at people who were anorexic and I would think they're so much stronger than I am. Like it just seemed like that would be better than where I was. Like my whole adult life, basically, I felt like that. So even once the bulimia stopped, I continued with the binging and restricting. If I had a bad weekend of eating a bunch of things that I felt like I shouldn't eat, I would restrict myself for, 3 or 4 days. I would try to fast, but I was never really strong enough to fast because I was hungry, because I was eating carbs too. And like fasting was really hard for me. And I felt like I was depriving myself. But it was like I was fasting for punishment. I wasn't fasting for health. So it's a completely different thing than the kind of fasting that some of us do, on the carnivore diet. And so I got sick with that terrible sickness several years ago. I guess it was 3.5 years ago now. During lockdown, if you will. Basically, it was the end of that year in December. And most of my family had it all at the same time. And I was in bed for about 11 days. The only thing that kept me out of the hospital was I didn't have like the breathing issues, but I was very sick, couldn't move. I mean, every muscle in my body hurt. I thought my back was breaking. I mean, it was just I've never been so sick. And when it was over, I still didn't have my taste and smell back. And it started to come back gradually, maybe a week later. And it got to the point where everything was just kind of muted. Like I couldn't really taste things, which was super disappointing. And then about 3 months later, I woke up one day and I came downstairs and I asked my husband if the dog had been sprayed by a skunk. It was like, what is that horrible smell? And he said, I don't know. I just made some coffee. And I was like, what? And I went over and I smelled his cup and it smelled like skunk, like a rotten skunk carcass somebody had lit on fire. It was the most horrible smell. It's called parosmia, and it actually happens to some cancer patients too. But it's how my body was reacting to the sickness that I had. And they say what happens is like if you had like a big tube of fiber optic wires and you snipped those, like hundreds of wires in there, you snipped them all, and then they got reconnected to the wrong wires is what's happening. So I couldn't smell paint when we were painting something or when we were around paint, but I would just smell paint randomly sitting on the couch in our living room. I couldn't, like, cigarette smoke didn't smell like cigarette smoke in person when I would smell it when somebody would walk past me, but I would smell it sitting on our couch in the living room. And sometimes I would just smell gas and I would be like, does anybody else smell gas? Like, I thought my house was going to explode, and everybody would say, no, nobody else smells it. It was really hard. It was actually like that for almost 3 years. And so at the beginning, I was very depressed. It was a very difficult place to be. I was sad. Fruits, vegetables, most meats, popcorn, peanut butter, garlic, onion, you name it. It smelled like a rotten skunk carcass somebody had lit on fire. And so I was gaining weight because I was only eating sugar. I was like, that was the only thing that tasted good. So I ate lots of baked goods. Like, I was basically surviving on baked goods because it was the only thing that brought me comfort and didn't taste so horrible. And so there's also another one called anosmia, which is like that's the no smell, no taste. And then there's phantosmia, where it's like phantom smells, which I also had. And so anyway, I was eating like all of these sweet things. I was miserable. Like, I really didn't feel good. I mean, imagine I would eat like, 2 blueberry muffins for breakfast and then strawberry cake for lunch. And then I would have cupcakes for dinner. It was all gluten-free. So it seems like it's healthy, but it was not. My girls had a gluten-free baking business at the time, my teenage girls. And so we would go to the farmer's market on Saturdays and sometimes on Tuesdays, and I would just eat their leftovers like all week long. That's what I was surviving on. And so my birthday weekend rolled around. I was turning 48. And they said, do you want us to make your favorite cupcakes? And I said, yes, and double the batch. And I ate 20 cupcakes in 36 hours. It was a weekend. That started on Saturday. That was my birthday. And I ate my way through Sunday night, woke up Monday morning, went running, and I came home and I said, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't do this anymore. Like, I have to cut out the sugar. And I knew at that point that I could eat a burger fresh off the grill, and I could eat a New York strip fresh off the grill. That was the only meat I could eat at that point. Chicken smelled horrible. Eggs. My husband came home one day from work and found me in our camper crying because my daughter was in the house making eggs. I mean, it was that bad. Like, I had to leave parties. I had to leave homeschool groups. Our kids do basketball and volleyball, and a lot of times we sell like chili on hot dogs and on potatoes and stuff. And there were times where I had to go to the car. I mean, it smelled so bad. I finally bought these little silicone rings with balls on the end that you could put right here on the tip of your nose. And it was not really easy to see, but if you were up close talking to me, you could see it. But I could put essential oils on it so I could smell that instead of whatever the smell was in the room. So eventually I got those to kind of cope with it. But so that day I started eating I decided, okay, I'm just going to eat hamburgers and a New York strip. And then I was laying out on the porch in the sun thinking about this. What's going to happen to me if I just eat like this? What's going to happen? And so I just started looking things up, like, what happens if I only eat meat? And of course, I found Joe Rogan and Sean Baker, that podcast. And then I found Kelly Hogan and Laura Spath. Like, I found all these people, and I was like, wait a minute, people eat like this? It just seemed so bizarre to me, but it gave me hope and let me know that I wasn't going to die. I hoped that I wasn't going to die from eating like this. And so I started that very day, went to the grocery store. And my family just thought that I wasn't eating the other things because they tasted and smelled bad, which was true. But they didn't know I was a carnivore for about a year. Like, I would make the meat and then I would make other things, for my family to go along with it. And just nobody questioned it because I was making other things, and they just thought I couldn't eat those things because they tasted and smelled bad. So even once my taste and smell started to get a little better, like, I would say it's probably about 6 months before I could eat eggs and chicken. And that's an interesting point. I wonder if those two things happened at the same time, because that would be weird, wouldn't it? If it was chicken and eggs at the same time. It might have been. But anyway, I started like getting things back gradually. And so I became a carnivore from that day on. And there was no chance I was going to cheat because nothing else tasted or smelled good. So I wasn't using spices. Like, there were so many things that I couldn't eat that I wasn't going to cheat. And I had already decided to take sugar off the plate, so to speak. So I wasn't eating any sugar or carbs at all. And so it just kind of progressed for me. Like, I just kept doing it. And my husband found out, he became mostly carnivore. And my kids, they still have, a better than average diet, but pretty average. But when we buy them, and people are going to probably comment how terrible it is, but if they eat basically a normal diet, but we've always been healthy. Like, I was always the crunchy mom in every group we were ever in. I was the crunchy mom. Like I was making my own granola when, you know, when people would eat granola in my house. I always made homemade fresh bread. I always had like these rules about what they could eat, what they couldn't eat. When they were really little, I would at a stoplight open up a can of green beans with no salt with a can opener I kept in the glove compartment, and then I would dump the water out at a stoplight and hand it back to my kids in their car seats. You know, like we were always healthy. They never had baby food. I always made all their baby food. They've never had a store-bought birthday cake that I bought for our family parties. Like everything was always healthy. So if they want macaroni and cheese, we buy Annie's gluten-free organic macaroni and cheese, you know, like, so I'm that kind of a crunchy mom now. Like they still eat berries. I try to keep them protein heavy. I try to make all of their meals, you know, more protein based. But I became a carnivore that day on May 24th of 2021. Is that right? Yeah, 2021. And I've had a few setbacks here and there. But last July, when it had been almost 3 years since that taste and smell issue came up, at that point, there were still several things I couldn't go near. Like it was hard for me to be in the same room as garlic and onion. We had a jar of peanut butter in the cabinet that every now I would pick it up and smell it. Like that was how I tested whether or not things were better. And I remember on a Tuesday, this is so weird that I remember the day, maybe because it was like Taco Tuesday, I don't know, but I made taco burgers for everybody. And they were delicious. I could eat it, but it didn't really taste fabulous. But I could smell the not good smell still in it. And then on Thursday, just out of the blue, I did what I always do, which was pick up the peanut butter and smell it. Like I was looking for something on the Lazy Susan and I found it in there and I opened it and it smelled like peanut butter. And I immediately started crying. So this was 2 years and 8 months later. I opened the refrigerator door, tears streaming down my face, and got like, you know, the crushed up garlic that's in a jar in the refrigerator. I got it out and it smelled like garlic. And then I smelled the salsa and this tomato sauce and everything smelled normal. So I immediately made myself a cup of decaf, which I had cut out coffee. I continued to drink coffee for the first 8 or 9 months that I was a carnivore. And just because I didn't want to give up coffee, like there's a whole culture around coffee, you know? So I didn't want to give up the coffee, but I did eventually because it just smelled and tasted so bad. I mean, I had to put so much cream in it, and I mean, it was just horrible. It was like drinking skunk juice. Like at that point, like it was just so horrible. Every time somebody made a cup of coffee, I would snub my nose, but then I would make myself a cup. So I had given it up. So I immediately made myself a cup of decaf, which I had had maybe 2 or 3 times since I had cut out coffee about 1.5 years before that, and the decaf tasted like decaffeinated coffee. It was amazing. And so after that, I started experimenting a little bit with, you know, like some spices and stuff. And then I had a mishap at Christmas this past Christmas, where it was 4 or 5 days of miserable, like boxes of chocolate covered cherries. And I mean, it just was not good, not something I'm proud of. I woke up Christmas morning crying. I just really, really struggled once I allowed myself to go out for Mexican food with my family for Christmas Eve. I was like, I'm going to have one meal. I can do it. I'm going to have that one meal. I think I can do it. And it ended up just catapulting. It was horrible. I guess maybe we'll talk about that kind of stuff later. But other than that, I'm a pretty strict carnivore. People will call me on things like the decaf and say, "Oh, carnivores don't drink coffee," because I do. We got a new espresso machine for my birthday, and so I have that, you know, a few times a week, and I absolutely love it. It's like a true joy for me. When I gave up coffee, I went through about 2.5 weeks of total and complete depression. I was sad. I was crying. I felt lonely. Like I would go take the dog for a walk and I would cry. Like I just missed the coffee, and knowing that I was giving up that part of my life. I learned to drink coffee when I was 8 at AA meetings with my mom. You know, I had been drinking coffee my entire life. It was so hard to give it up. Crying. Like I just felt so sad, you know, like I felt like I was losing part of my life. And so it was great that I was able to add decaf back in. Don't come at me for drinking decaffeinated coffee, because I don't want to hear it. I buy the best organic decaffeinated coffee I can find, and I don't even want to talk about it. I love it, and it's wonderful. I use heavy cream, and it's my favorite. And so other than that, I don't really eat a lot of things. On occasion, I will have an artichoke, just because it's something that I remember doing with my mom as a fun thing, where you peel the leaves off and dip them in butter, you know. So I added those back in, like literally, like I think I've had 3 or 4 in 1.5 years or something. Like my kids, we were at the grocery store and they were giant, beautiful artichokes. And it's just a thing that we've done since they were little. And we all sit around the table and talk, and it takes us like 30 or 45 minutes to eat our artichokes. It's just like a special little thing. And so I was like, I'm going to have an artichoke with my kids when I want to have an artichoke with my kids. You know, like I think I've healed enough that if I want to add an artichoke back in every now and then, I can do that. But other than that, I'm pretty strict. I'm never going back to the way it used to be. I mean, I was so obsessed with food and my weight. And not that I don't obsess about my weight still, because I do. I'm still working on that last, like 8 pounds after getting to my goal and gaining some back, and just trying to figure things out, because there's definitely a little bit of a science to it for some of us. But I'm never going back to the way I used to eat. I mean, never. And I'm not saying that I won't have a treat every now and then. I would like to think that I can get to a point where maybe I could be a moderator instead of an abstainer. And if my grandkids someday, I don't have grandkids yet, but when I have grandkids, if one of them offers me a bite of a cookie that they made homemade, I would like to be able to do that like Karen Miles does. Karen Miles, that was one of my first experiences with carnivore when I had been strict for several months. And I heard Karen in an interview and I thought, gosh, I hope that's me someday. I hope someday when my grandkid hands me a cookie, or one of my kids says, here, Mom, you have to taste this, that I can just do that. Not because somebody's pressuring me or because I feel guilty for not eating it, but because that's one of the joys in other people's lives, is to be able to, and I love to make food for people. So I don't think it's wrong if, my son or one of my daughters says, oh my gosh, Mom, you have to try this. I would like to be able to say, okay, and take a bite. And I actually did that recently a couple of times where one of them offered me something and they were shocked that like it made them so happy that I tasted it, not because they want to sabotage me or because they want to poison me, but because we share food, right? That's what we do, is we share food. And so I would love to get to a point where I can do that. And I said that in a recent interview that I did for my channel, and somebody commented, why would you want to poison yourself for fun? I don't want to poison myself for fun. Why would you add things back in? They said, well, sometimes you want to have a bite of something with your family. And I don't think everybody needs to be 100% strict carnivore. So I would love to get to a point where I could take, a couple of bites of something somebody made for me. I'm not sure that I'm there yet, but I'm hoping that that's coming soon. But I'll never go back to eating the way I used to eat. Never. It's just not worth it. So this is where I am now. It's been 3 years and 2 months, and I love it.
Amazing. So I've seen that. So how is the relationship with the food? Is it a lot better? Are you still struggling with any of that tough, disordered type of thinking?
No, I don't think so. I mean, on occasion, I see somebody with something, or my girls are baking something. Like a couple of days ago, we made this delicious chocolate cake that my girls used to make and sell at the farmer's market for one of their friends who was having a birthday. And I wanted to taste it. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to taste that cake. It's delicious. It's moist. It's honestly the best chocolate cake I've ever had in my life. And I would love to have tasted it. But I'm just not there. I'm not at the point where I could take a bite of a chocolate cake and just kind of move on. Plus, I'm right in the middle of this weird experiment about sardines and macros and ketones and glucose. And so that one bite may have skewed my results of my test of my experiment. It's all for science, and I don't want to mess it up. So I couldn't eat the one bite, and I don't know that I would have anyway, because I feel like that one bite would have led to an entire piece, which may have led to most of the cake. And so that's just not something that I could take my chances with yet.
Okay, so I totally had a different question for you, but then you said sardines and ketones and stuff. So I was like, well, now that changed my question. So side note, I was going to do a sardine fast. I ate one can of sardines and said, nope, cannot do it. But I will tell you, I did buy a Keto Mojo meter. Okay. And yesterday morning, I had been fasted for about 18 hours. So not super long. And I hadn't tested in a while. I'm like, I'm just going to test and see what's up. And I was very happily surprised to find that my glucose was sitting at 78 and my ketones were at 2.9.
Wonderful.
That's great. And I had eaten beef. So the day before I had eaten beef. I can't remember. Probably picanha. But I can't remember for sure. But probably some picanha. That's awesome. So I'm just curious, unless this is a spoiler for a video, how is that going? Like when you're doing sardines, where are you? What's your goal? And like where do your ketones and glucose and all that get to?
Okay. So for the record, I don't like sardines. And the first time I ate sardines, I did what you did. I was like, no. I'm actually going to mention Karen again, because it was Karen and Jackie had done a YouTube live. Was it YouTube? Yeah, must have been it was a Zoom. It was a Zoom. And a bunch of people joined that had never had sardines before. And we all opened the cans together. And I remember eating when I was a kid, but I didn't really remember. And it wasn't what I pictured. I pictured a fish in the can. But it was still gross, even though there's no head and stuff. It was still, and people think that there's the head in there, and there's not the head in there. So I was really disgusted by them. But Kelly Hogan talks about sardines a lot. And so about a year and a half ago, Kelly was doing a lot of sardine stuff. She was talking about Dr. Boz a lot. And I just thought, okay, I can do it. And I bought like one of the stores near me. I bought like their brand of them and brought them home. And then Kelly was recommending Wild Planet, which she doesn't recommend anymore. And I wish I had known that, because for like almost a year and a half, I ate the Wild Planet ones that have like the skin and the bones, which I can't stand. Adrian likes it. I can't stand it. But I ate those, even though like I basically had to close my eyes and just eat them whole. Like I would like, or I would cut them in half and take a big chunk, drowned it in mustard. I mean, oh, I don't like them. I don't like them at all. And then Courtney started this. So I've done several 2 and 3 day sardine fast, many 1 day sardine fast, even though I despise them, because I do love how they make me feel. And I had done a 3 day fast back in April. And then Courtney was doing that 10-day one with Adrian and Dr. Lisa. And so I did the first, I think it was 3 days of that. Then we had company coming to town. And so I didn't want to do it while she was here. She was going to be here for 10 days, but I told her about it and let her watch some of the videos. She was completely intrigued by it. So we actually did a couple of days while she was here. And then when she left, I did 7 days. And then I ate normal carnivore foods for a week. And then I did 5 days. And then I just did 6 days. And the reason I decided to do, and I do tend to overdo things. Like when I was water fasting, I water fasted a lot, like to the point where, and this is a whole nother discussion, I gained weight from over fasting and under eating. I think maybe Adrian and I will talk about that later. But I lost my train of thought. So anyway, I was maybe overdoing the sardine thing just a little bit, but it did make me feel amazing. And it did help me lose weight. I am down, I think it's 11 pounds since the end of April. And at this point, I only have about 6 pounds left until I hit my goal. So that's pretty good. It's so hard to lose when you're, I know, it's so hard to lose when you're so close to hitting your goal. So I felt like that was amazing. Sometimes after I do a sardine fast, I might gain a pound or 2 back, but not if I track my food. If I track my food when I come out of a sardine fast, I don't gain. In previous sardine fasts, I was under eating for sure. There were days I would only eat 1 can with either avocado oil mayonnaise, or I would drink the olive oil in the can. And Dr. Boz says the fat is really important. You can't eat them in water and not add fat and have the same results. It just doesn't work. She's very specific about that. And so I would eat 1 can. Sometimes I would eat 2 cans. I was having such a hard time eating enough, but I was losing weight. And so I figured it was okay. It was those times that I would have a little bit of a rebound afterwards. But then there were several videos, several people talking about how sardine fasting isn't good. You'll gain all the weight back. A couple of people said it's just because it's a low fat diet, or because it's a extreme calorie deficit. There was a lot of discussion going on. And so I thought, I had been talking to Kelly Hogan about it. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to do 7 days of sardines at my normal weight loss calories, which are between 16 and 1700. The macros of sardines to reach 1600 calories it would be 4 cans with at least 2 tablespoons of fat in each can. And that ends up being 400 calories a can if you do it like that. And so that would be 4 cans with the added fat would give me about 1600 calories. The macros for that would be about 75-25, 75% fat, 25% protein. So I decided I was going to do 7 days of that. And then I was going to do 7 days of my normal standard carnivore diet with the same macros and the same calories, and see what happens. Are you really just losing weight on a sardine fast because you're under eating, or because it's just high protein without as high fat? Or is there some magic to those little fishies, right? And so I ended up only doing 7 days, because by the time I got to day 6, I think it was, I didn't feel right. I got up, I went to go sit in the sun, get my vitamin D, and I just didn't feel right. And I came back in. I always wait about an hour after I wake up to check my glucose, because I get the dawn phenomenon, or the dawn effect, where my glucose tends to be high when I first wake up. So I always wait 45 minutes or an hour. So I was sitting out in the sun getting my vitamin D, and I thought, I know I'm such a scientist. I missed my calling. And so I thought, I just don't feel right. And so I came in and I checked my glucose, and it was 47. So my meter's like beeping at me. My ketones were 5.6 at that point, I think. So I felt good up until this. I felt great. I felt amazing on the sardines until this dip in my glucose. And so I went ahead and ate, and I checked it several times that day, and my glucose did come up a little bit. But I was really tired all day, like really drained. And the other thing that I think is going on is that I had that sickness again at the beginning of May. And the last time I had it a couple of years ago, so I've had it 3 times, and each time it was the same for me. It doesn't get better, except that I was only in bed for 9 days the last 2 times instead of 11 like the first time. But my blood pressure drops really, really low after I have had that sickness. And I was actually donating plasma 2 years ago when I had it, and they kept sending me away. I had to stop donating plasma because my blood pressure was too low. It was like at one point, I think my top number was low 80s, maybe high 70s, like dangerously low. And I talked to several doctors about it. I talked to Dr. Chafee, and he said, if you went to the hospital, they would just put you on fluids. So drink a lot of water. And it just needed to go away. It was from the sickness. And it lasted for months, like 3 months afterwards. And so that day when my glucose was so low the other day, I came in and I checked my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was low. The top number was like, I don't know, 95, which is still really low. I mean, it's not as low as it was last time, but it's pretty low. And so I think that was going on that day too. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to call this tomorrow morning if my blood sugar isn't any better, and just do the 6-day experiment of the sardines and regular carnivore. And so I called it on Sunday morning and decided I was just going to go ahead and eat normal carnivore foods instead. And I think my glucose that morning, so it was the morning of what would have been day 7, I think it was 69. So it was still a little bit low. I could have done sardines that day. I could have done it again. But I had an experience a couple of days before where I tried a new brand. Like, it took everything in me to eat my sardines the other days. Like, still, a new box of sardines just came from Amazon, and I can't even look at the box. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not like making fun of the sardines. I am not overdoing this. I can't look at the box of sardines. When I do, I start to get a gag reflex. So no more sardines for me for a little while. But here's what's happened with the experiment. So my glucose super low, too low for sure. Why is that? At 75-25 ratios, macros, and 1,600 calories, why did that happen from the sardines? I don't know. But I've been eating those same macros and the same calories for the last 3 days on carnivore. And guess what? My glucose is back up to like 90-5. I don't understand why it's so high. So my glucose is like 95. And my ketones this morning, oh, I can't look, it's on my phone. My ketones this morning, I think were 1 point something. Like, it's gone down gradually while my glucose has gone up gradually. So the sardine fast does not just work because you're in a calorie deficit or because you're eating high protein. That is not why it works. I don't know why it works. I don't know. Is it the omega-3s? I don't know. I'd like to talk to a real scientist about this. Can we get a real scientist on here, please? I would just like to know why this is.
So we're having Dr. Boz on in a couple of months. So awesome. Email me that question because I'm going to forget it. But email it to me, and I will try to make sure we get that question in.
Okay, awesome. I'm supposed to have her on too. I've talked to her assistant. We're trying to figure out when we're going to do that. And that is definitely going to be one of my questions for her. But the truth is, I don't think she knows. Like, I don't think we know why. But, like, it makes me want to cry because I want to understand it. I want to know why the sardines are doing that. Like, why does that happen? Because again, same macros, same calories for the last 3 days. My glucose is going up and my ketones are going down. That can only mean that there's something about the sardines. And I don't know if we'll ever find out what it is. Maybe it's the omega. I honestly have no idea. I can't even fathom. I can't even make something up. Like, what would the reason be? So anyway, so that's my experiment. I would like to get 2 weeks out and add sardines back in. I was eating them like for breakfast just because I can eat a can of sardines and drink the olive oil in 60 seconds. So I was eating them for breakfast before I go walking or running in the morning, because I've been trying to do all the eating within an hour of waking up, not using my phone, getting light, real light in my eyes, using a red light box. I've been trying to do all of those things. Oh, hi, Indigo. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. It took her a year to be able to eat them again. I would like to, in a couple of weeks, be able to add those back in. Because I know that they're so nutritious. And what I would like is to be able to do a 1 or 2 day fast, once a week or once every 2 weeks is what I would love to do. But day 3 really for me is the euphoric day. So I would miss day 3 if I only did 1 or 2 days, but I also don't want to overdo it again. I don't want to, include that same obsessive behavior that I have in the past. But the sardines are amazing. Like, yeah, everybody has that question. You get to day 2 or 3 and you're like, what the heck? What is it with these little fish? It's just, they're amazing. And so I think that's a real question. I think we should be studying this more. I think more people should be doing experiments on this, because we should definitely be promoting more sardines as a community if they can do that. Like, how much could they help somebody like me, like Adrian? Like, I've heard from so many people whose glucose on a regular carnivore diet is, 110, and mine, I have on my Keto Mojo, I have like the last 4 days before I started the experiment. And one of the days it was like 116. And I was like, what in the world? Now, I wasn't tracking calories, but I was eating my normal carnivore diet. Why would my glucose be so high? And so I just think it's really interesting. And so that's why I'm doing this experiment. I just feel like somebody had to do it. And so, but I did manage to lose 5 pounds last week doing the sardine fast in 6 days, and then lost almost another pound when I switched back to regular carnivore foods. So although my glucose is coming up and my ketones are going down, that was the first day. So that could have been left over from the sardine fast, but I've maintained since then. And so, there's not always the rebound. I think there's only the rebound if we kind of overdo it, which I have done in the past. You're so excited to eat, the other meats and the dairy and stuff that you couldn't eat on the sardine fast, you kind of go a little bit nuts. And I think that happened to me a couple of times. But I didn't binge. I just ate a little bit more than I should have and gained, a couple of the pounds back. So yeah, so that's my experiment. And I'll make a video about it next week after I have, all the numbers and everything.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm like just about a little over a year on carnivore, and I've never tested my ketones. I've never tested
really?
my blood sugar or anything like that. But now I'm kind of interested to see like what's going on with those metrics. But one thing I do understand is how our emotions can change and how our mental health can improve. But then there's times when that's put to the test. And so you posted a really emotional, raw video talking about your Christmas cheat, and your face was swollen and you were so, so defeated, and my heart broke for you. And so I was wondering if you can give some advice for someone on the carnivore diet who has cheated. Can you share a little bit about that experience? I think that could help someone.
Yeah, I think, who did I tell this the other day, or was it today? Somebody messaged me about this very thing. And I said, I didn't do this, but I think I will for next time, because there's probably going to be a next time. I have to be honest, right? There's probably going to be a next time, because that's my problem. That's my issue. I'd love to say that's never going to happen again, but I can't guarantee that's never going to happen again. So I think you should write yourself a note when you're feeling really good about how amazing you feel. And just knowing that when you went off, you would just feel like total and complete garbage, and you would feel like the old you again, which a lot of us here don't want to feel like the old us, right? So I think maybe writing yourself a note. But I think ultimately it has to be, you just have to make the decision, and that's hard. That's hard, especially in the moment when you're re-addicted and your brain is all lit up from all the sugar and from the carbohydrates. That's a really hard thing. And I honestly, I don't think anybody can help you. I think it has to be coming from you. My girls and I watch a lot of things on the Hallmark Channel. We watch a lot of Hallmark movies. And I remember we were watching a show a few years ago. And in this show, one of the things they said was, addiction is the only prison where the lock is on the inside. And I wrote it down when the show ended, because, right? I know. It's very emotional, right? It's true.
Wow.
Addiction is the only prison where the lock is on the inside. You're the only one that can get you out of it. And that's really hard, to know that you're the one that's in charge of that, all of those years that I thought I was in control, because I was the one deciding what I eat, or I was the one, when I was bulimic, I was the one throwing up, or I was the one starving myself, but really it was controlling me. And I didn't know that until I was about 45. And then it took me, several years after that to find the carnivore diet and find my way and, see the light, I guess you could say. But that saying for me just kind of changed it. I think that's it's just a really profound statement, and it's true. You're the only one that can get you out of that prison.
That's amazing. I've heard Dr. Boz did do, like, people asked, can we do other fish? Can we do, can we add this? Can we add that? And in her experience, you couldn't. But now if you go over to Ketogenic Woman, Anita, she's having Omega Mondays, and people are having pretty great results there too. And, it's more than, so for me, sometimes my blood sugar doesn't come down. I don't know if it's because of the frequency I eat them or because I eat a lot of them because I don't mind them. But I find,
It's okay.
I find that they're so healing. Like a person who struggles with hormones and thyroid and and energy, they give you, it was so funny watching Courtney because I thought for sure 2 days in she was going to go, this is disgusting. What was I thinking? And she was like, I feel effing amazing. I feel amazing.
I know. Wait, and then like 2 days later, her video starts out with F sardines. I want to punch them all in the face. So funny.
So I think
watch her emotions.
So I want to just throw it out there for everyone that every single fast for me, the very first can is the hardest for me every single time, even though I don't mind them. And honestly, the whole first day, I kind of mourn missing coffee.
Totally.
And because you could have black coffee, but I don't do that.
Me too.
But after that, for me, it's like day 4 is pretty euphoric.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how long are you going to eat sardines? So Dr. Boz, I got to ask her, she said 30 days is fine. I mean, as long as if you're only eating 1 can a day, 30 days is going to be, you're probably going to end up in a binge event. But if you're eating your macros, if you're eating your calories, it's probably fine. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about something that both of us have struggled with, which is undereating. After my gastric bypass, I was eating the 900 to 1200 calories, training for a half marathon, and I stopped losing weight. And I went to the doctor and they were like, you must be tracking wrong. You must be missing something. And I'm like, no, that's why I'm here. Could you run, have you ever experienced that? And what is the solution?
Yeah, so I guess I left that part out of my story. I was so focused on the parosmia. I forgot about that at the beginning of Carnivore, in the first 8 months, I gained 18 pounds by undereating and overfasting. And there are people who say that's impossible, but it's true. I've talked to many doctors in this space about it who agree with me that it is totally possible. Like, my body was in extreme crisis mode. I would fast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I would eat 2 hamburger patties with either 1 tablespoon of butter or like 1 piece of cheese on them. And these were hamburger patties that were already pre-made. I wasn't making myself like these giant hamburgers. For a while, they were like some already cooked ones that Sam's had that had pretty clean ingredients that you could take frozen out of the freezer and you could throw it in the microwave for 60 seconds and have what tasted like a fresh grilled hamburger. And that was easy for me. So I didn't have to grill for my family the whole time. Like, once my taste and smell started to get a little better and I could eat those, that made things a lot easier for me. So they were already, like, the package says, how many calories there are. And so I was eating like 2 of those on my eating days. And on Sunday, I probably did eat a little bit more, but not that much more. My stomach had shrunk, my energy had gone down. I wasn't as hungry, because that's what you do. When you starve yourself, you end up not being as hungry. And so I was full. I would eat those 2 hamburger patties midday. And I would say to myself, I know I'm supposed to eat more on my eating days, but then I would fast until I was trying to give myself like a 2-hour eating window. And within that 2 hours, I just wasn't hungry enough to eat again. And so I would say, I'll just roll this into my fast for tomorrow. And the scale, just like, it would stay the same. It would come down a pound and then it would go up 2 pounds. And then it would stay the same and it would go up a pound. And then the next time it would go down 2 pounds and I would be so excited, but then it would go back up those 2 pounds. It was like, that has happened to me before over the years. One time when I did Weight Watchers, the same thing happened. And it was like, I think you have to decide at some point when the scale is just kind of level with what you're doing. You have to decide, is it not, are you overeating or undereating? And are you in maintenance mode? And so I would track my calories for several times of eating. And I would say, well, that's clearly not maintenance mode for me. There's no way I'm in maintenance mode at 600 or 700 calories a day, 800 calories. That can't be my maintenance calories. So am I overeating? Absolutely not. I'm obviously not overeating. So am I undereating? And every time this has happened to me, when I start eating more, the scale goes down. And so I lost a couple of pounds when I started reverse dieting, and then the scale just kind of stayed the same. And I kept it that way for about 4 months to boost my metabolism at about 2,000 calories a day. And then I was able to drop it just a little bit, and I was able to lose 35 pounds. But it was hard. It was very hard. I messed up my metabolism. The over fasting. I went to the doctor for my normal check, my normal like physical, and my hormones had plummeted. My progesterone showed postmenopausal, even though I was only 48 and had no symptoms of that at all yet, of being in menopause. And so that I wasn't postmenopausal. I just had tanked my hormones because I was fasting too much and not eating enough. And I remember one time, I actually went to a natural doctor not far from us. He does like muscle response testing, which I think Kelly does some of that in her group. And somebody else does it. I can't think of who it is right now, but somebody else does that in this space, the muscle response testing. It's like nutrition training. And so I've been going to this doctor, and he put me on a low carb diet, but he told me I could eat a handful of blueberries. I could have some low carb vegetables, but I'm an all or nothing person. This was probably 7 years ago. And so I ate only meat. Like, I just thought, well, if a few carbs are good, then no carbs must be better. And so I started doing that. And after about a year of doing that, I had lost no weight at all. I was under eating for sure. And I was doing some fasting too. He told me to incorporate some fasting. So I remember at one point, I had been fasting for 72 hours. We had driven to New York overnight to spend a couple of days in the city at Christmas time with our kids. I broke my fast at the hotel breakfast, stayed on track the entire time that we were in New York City. I didn't eat anything. They went to a pizza place. I made them pick a restaurant that also had hamburgers so I could eat a burger. So I did it exactly right. But I weighed myself at the beginning of my fast and weighed myself the night before we left. So I ate like 8 hours later. I weighed exactly to the ounce what I weighed before I started my water fast. So was I under eating? I mean, like, was I eating too much at that point? Is that why I didn't lose any weight? Was I eating at maintenance? No, I wasn't eating at maintenance. My body was in extreme crisis mode that whole time. And the doctor just kept saying to me, your body's trying to heal. He didn't realize how little I was eating, at that point. But that was probably 7 or 8 years ago now. And yet I fall back into my same patterns over and over and over again. And I pretty much guarantee you that if I switch to 800 calories a day right now, maybe I'd lose a little bit of weight at the beginning, but at some point very soon, if I continue with that, my body would stop losing weight. It just would. Would I gain weight? I don't know, but I would definitely quit losing weight. That's just what happens with me. But it did not happen when I was under eating sardines. Just want to say that did not happen when I was under eating sardines. I continued to lose weight, but I don't want to do it like that. I wanted to do it the right way. So anyway, yeah, I have had lots of trouble over the years, basically multiple times in the last 10 or 12 years where I was trying to lose weight and found myself under eating, and either the scale would be stuck or I would actually gain weight.
Wow. So I have a question about the fact that you didn't tell your family for a whole year. And obviously it's been more than a whole year, so you eventually told them.
Yes.
So firstly, why didn't you tell them to begin with? And then what was their reaction, and how supportive are they of what you're doing now?
Well, it just didn't come up. And it wasn't like, it wasn't like I neglected to tell them, hey guys, I'm doing the carnivore diet. It was basically a medical reason, right? And it was the only thing I could eat. So when it happened, it just happened to happen. It wasn't like I was going on a diet, like when I was juice fasting. Oh, the juice fast I did. I wasn't juice fasting. I wasn't water fasting. So I wasn't saying to them, oh, I'm not going to eat for the next couple of days. It just kind of happened. And these were the things they knew. These were the two things that I could eat for now. And so when I wasn't adding things back in, and they knew, because it affected me on a daily basis. I couldn't go anywhere where things tasted and smelled right. We would be somewhere and I would run out of water. And like at my mother-in-law's house, I can't fill up my water bottle. I still can't, because it still doesn't taste or smell right. We would be at a friend's house, we'd be there for hours. And if they didn't have any bottled water, once my water bottle was gone, that was it. If I didn't come prepared with extra water, because I couldn't drink their water, even with my electrolytes in it, I could taste the water over top of the electrolytes. So this was a normal thing going on every single day at our house. Somebody would say, can I make eggs? And I would say, sure, I'll go outside for a little while. Open the windows when you're done. Or, it affected me on a daily basis. So they knew that I was dealing with this, and they knew I could only eat the hamburger and the steak. So I wasn't keeping it from them. They just didn't know I was a carnivore. They didn't know that I was becoming part of this community and that I had changed my life. You know what I mean? And so I honestly don't remember even the original conversation with them about what, so I don't even really remember. They do think it's a little bit nuts. And the reason I don't, try to force them to eat the way I'm eating is I'm trying to preserve my relationship with my kids. They're all either adults or almost adults, and they're going to have to make their own choices. If they were little, I would empty out the snack cabinet. I would get rid of all the condiments in the refrigerator that we didn't need. If they were littler, I would totally take control, but they're older, and I'm not going to damage my relationship with my kids over their food. Do I want them to be at least on a low carb, no processed food diet? Absolutely. Will they do that? maybe they'll do it on their own. Maybe I can be a good enough example. Maybe they'll start, realizing that they don't feel as good as they should, or, whatever. But I'm not going to force them to do that now. So, but anyway, so I didn't go out of my way to not tell them. It just kind of never came up, I don't think.
That's so funny. I think that when we're trying to change our diet and improve our health, sometimes we just kind of want to focus on ourselves sometimes. And so I could totally see how your family was probably just like, let mom eat what she can eat. Let's not put any pressure on her. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. And the condition that you had is just like, it blows my mind. I've never heard anything like that before. So I'm so glad that you found healing with that. And so you interview a lot of people on your channel sharing their stories. What made you want to start a YouTube channel?
It actually wasn't even, I had a channel that I used for juicing before that, but it actually wasn't even my idea. I had a partner in the beginning. Jesselyn Randall was my partner. We had done an Instagram live together, and we had so much fun that we sent each other messages afterwards, like, let's do something else together. We got on a Zoom call with each other the next day and talked for like 2 hours about what we should do. And we decided on a cooking YouTube channel. And so that's actually how it started. We came up with the name, and we used to make recipes, and the videos, if you scroll all the way back, the videos are way too long. We didn't really know what we were doing. We should have edited those down. Like, some of the cooking videos are like an hour long. Like, nobody needs to watch that. But we had fun. We made messes. We learned, how to make these different things together. And then we would do cooking with friends sometimes. We made ice cream live with Dr. Kiltz one time. And then we had Bella on one time to make her egg pudding live on camera with us to teach us how to do it. And we had Karen and Jackie on from their Carnivore Twins page, and we cooked chicken skins with them one time. So we just really had a lot of fun. And we did a few interviews, but we didn't do as many interviews, as like I'm doing now. So those are the older videos there, and we had a great time. And we were 12 hours apart. She's living in Okinawa, Japan with her husband. He's in the military. And so it just got to the point where scheduling was really hard. And it just it took up a lot of our time. One of us always had to be in the morning while the other one was at night. And eventually she just kind of wanted a break, and then she just didn't come back. But we are still good friends. We talk to each other on a regular basis. I love her. And so anyway, so that's how it got started, was as a cooking YouTube channel. And I still do recipes here and there, obviously the short recipes with the reels and things like that. But I'm supposed to do a recipe video supposed to do a longer form recipe video every Wednesday, but I don't always do that. So it's Mondays and Fridays, the interviews are released. I'm supposed to post a video midweek, and I just hardly ever get around to it. I did record one today though. So we'll see if that actually makes it up onto the website tomorrow at some point. I don't know if it will or not.
Something that's been game changing in our house is I tried to convince my husband that we shouldn't be putting Aquaphor on our kids' butts, because if you wouldn't put it in your mouth, you shouldn't put it on your skin. And so I whipped up some tallow, and he was like, this smells like poop. And so he was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And he was just addicted to this Aquaphor, taking it everywhere. But we haven't hardly had to put I'm sorry that this is about to come out my mouth. But he took my beautiful jar of anti-aging face cream from Purely Tallow, and he put some of it on the baby's butt, and his butt's never been so great.
Yay for good butts.
And so the other funny thing is that my kids think that, and it's probably true, that your tallow heals. So every time they get an owie, we have to go get the Purely Tallow, and they'll steal the jar. But can you tell us, I think I don't know why, but there's something different about your tallow. I don't know if it's you put camel hump or emu. Something is different because it's literally magical.
So I do try to just stay with animal products, and I think that does make a big difference. Our skin is more closely related to, on a cellular level, to an animal oil or an animal fat than it is to olive oil, to jojoba oil, coconut oil, and so many people. Most of the other companies, I've only found a couple that don't dilute it with something. Some people use grapeseed oil. Like, why would you use a seed oil in your lotion? So, so I'm really trying to stick with animal fats. So my unscented tallow, the whipped tallow, is just the unscented tallow that's whipped. And then I have several different scents. I think like 8 or 10 different scents now of that. The lavender is the most popular. I call it anti-aging. It's called blue lavender. Excuse me. And that's because it has medicinal grade lavender essential oil in it, along with some blue tansy, both of which are renowned and go back centuries for being really good for healing your skin. And so that's the most popular one. And then I have like a white peppermint. I have a Bulgarian rose lotion line that the Bulgarian rose oil comes straight from a farm in Bulgaria, straight from a plantation there. I also have some Egyptian jasmine. And then I just added in the last week, I added some after sun care lotions and a spray with the emu oil. And then also in the whipped tallow, and I added some different magnesium lotions. There's a couple of spray magnesium lotions and a whipped lotion. And then I also added whipped wild camel hemp fat, which I took to the Wired for Healing retreat at the end of April and beginning of May and let people try it. Like I wanted to get the reaction, and it really is. The texture is a little bit different than the whipped tallow. Feels a little bit different. It does smell a little bit stronger than the whipped tallow, but the texture is amazing. So it'd be really great to use like at night before you go to bed on your feet, or even on your face before you go to bed. But it absorbs really quickly anyway, like the tallow does. I mean, you really can't tell much of a difference, but some people can't have beef. And so I think it's good for those people. I've had a couple of people reach out to me and say, do you make any whipped lotions that are made out of something else? Because I'm allergic to beef. So I added the wild camel hemp fat to it. I've had the wild camel hemp fat for a while because it's in several of my products as like a secondary instead of using a jojoba oil or an olive oil. I use that, and I use a lot of emu oil in my products. And so I just wanted to have a pretty big line available for people who don't want the plant-based products, because plant-based is stupid for our skin. The cells do not match our skin. And then the only other items out there are created in a factory. And who wants that? Because like Adrian said, when you put something on your skin, it absorbs into your blood. It's actually in your bloodstream within 30 seconds. So think about that the next time you're putting some store-bought lotion on your baby, or you mop your floor with one of those toxic cleaners, and then you let your baby run across it barefoot, because those toxins are getting in their system. It's getting into their blood. Our toxic load is huge. So anywhere we can reduce the toxic load, that's what we try to do. So thank you for saying that. I'm glad you like the lotion. And those are the new products. And the website is purelytallow.com.
And sorry to cut, but could you tell us how did you even start this?
So my girls had a gluten-free baking business at the farmer's market. And when they started, they were 9 and 11. So I would sit behind them and I would like cut up their samples for them. And when somebody had a question that they didn't know how to answer, I would help answer the questions. But they were doing all of the baking themselves. Like, I mean, at that point, they were so young, I was helping them a little bit, but they were doing it. And then as they got older, I would just as they would use the supplies in the kitchen, I would come behind them and wash everything and set it back up for whatever they were making. We homeschool. And so they would bake on Fridays as part of their school. And so I would come behind them. I would help them clean for they would bake all day long. And so when it got to the point where about 3-4 years ago, they didn't need me anymore at their booth at the farmer's market. And so I just asked the manager, can I have a booth? And at first I sold whipped coconut oil lotions, and those sold decently. And then I sold like decorative spoons where I would wrap stones around the handle of the spoons and do like serving spoons and stuff like that. And those sold pretty well. I just was trying to find something to do. And once I became a carnivore, I heard about tallow lotions and I thought, really? Beef fat on your face? So I don't really know how I feel about that. And so I made some and I was like, wow, this is really nice. So I just started making jars of it and taking it to the farmer's market, and just about as many as I took with me, they would sell. And so I was like, okay. So every now and then I would just talk about it on Instagram. I would make a little reel about it or something and they would sell. And then in the fall, last year, I went to a meetup in Colorado at Matt and Allison's house, the Power Puck people. If you haven't had Power Pucks, you have to try them. And so I went there and I watched them do this business. And I just thought to myself, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing this as a business? I mean, I'm doing it as a hobby. Why am I not doing what they're doing? And I came home within a few weeks. I had gotten a new website. I had bought a Shopify site. I was building that. And within a few weeks, I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it's just kind of built from there. And it's been a lot of fun. At that point, I just had the 2 lotions. I had the blue lavender and the white peppermint. And I just had those 2 for a long time. And then I just started like in the fall, I think in this last fall was when I created my 3rd scent, and that was Harvest Spice. And it's like, smells like fall. And then I just started adding things. And I don't know how many products are on the website now, but there are a lot of products on the website now. Hi, Tammy. Thank you. I like the harvest spice too. I don't really like fall because it means it's the end of summer, but I do like the harvest spice.
You and me both, sister. I'm a teacher. I don't like fall either. Summer's my favorite. Sorry, I just had to get that in there.
That's okay.
Well, hey, I think it's about time we spin our meaty wheel. What do you ladies think? All right, so we have a meaty wheel that's going to spin you a random question, Serena.
I'm nervous, but go ahead.
Yeah, it has that effect on people. Sorry about that, but here it is. And I'm going to give it a spin and we'll see what question we can hunt down for you. Okay, here's the meaty question we hunted down. If you could only eat one type of meat for the rest of your life, which would it be and why?
Prime rib, because it's delicious. I really don't have a reason besides that. It would be prime rib for sure. That was easy.
Good. That was easy and good answer.
But have you had picanha?
I've only had
Sell it, Adrian.
I've only had picanha once, but it'd be hard for it to beat prime rib.
You should totally get it. It'll change your life. Picanha pride. That's us.
Yes, we're the picanha pride over here for sure.
Yeah. A lot of people like picanha.
I'm in a hotel right now, and I brought picanha and my tasty air fryer with me.
That's awesome. Very cool. Love it.
You're eating
Love
good.
it.
That's awesome.
That's right.
And sardines. I brought a whole case of sardines too.
That's awesome.
Well, I love that. So, I don't know. I thought that this was a fantastic conversation. Do you think we should roar? I'm going to count us down, Adrian.
I think we're ready to roar.
All right. Are you ready, Serena?
I'm ready.
I hope your roar is better than mine.
And in the chat, guys, in the chat.
A very confused cat. Okay, ready?
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Roar. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a great time with you this evening, and we invite everyone to come back next Tuesday at 5 p.m. and we will have another amazing guest that we'll be talking to at that time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.